Hello, Dave, and welcome to Lead Generation Nation.
Hey, Johnny.
So, one thing we always ask all our guests is, who are you and why should we listen to you for the next 20 minutes?
Okay, sure. So I am a guy who lives right now in Magdeburg, Germany, but I'm originally from Miami, Florida. Came over here about 7 years ago, and you should listen to me because, I have to sort of crawl my way up from the bottom. I came over here. I came right at the time when there was the big market crash in the housing industry, and I did lose a lot during that time period. And I moved over to Germany really without having any job anymore or any source of income. And so, I sort of had to find my way. I mean, it was quite difficult. I started doing a lot of freelancing. I was doing a lot of work on Fiverr, believe it or not. I was one of their top-rated sellers. I sold over 1,000 gigs. I created something at that time called the QR News, which was basically just a flyer that had a bunch of QR codes on it, and I would hire flyer distributors at different colleges, and then we sold the advertising in package deals. So it was pretty popular for a time, but Fiverr is a difficult organization to do long-term business with, I think, for a lot of people. And if you say the wrong thing to a client, Fiverr checks everything, and they're very hard to, if you say the wrong thing, they can kick you off your site no matter how many gigs that you've had. But it really taught me about leveraging time, leveraging other people to do jobs for me, to help me with, tasks that would normally be very, very time consuming. And, I sort of got into LinkedIn marketing right after that. So I started working with a really great guy named Hagai Schechter out of Miami, an old colleague of mine. I actually worked for him for many years. He has a company called, well, what is it called? If I can remember. Well, the old company was called Options Media. And when I worked for him at that time, we were selling. He had an options newsletter that was a digital newsletter, and we were selling advertising in that newsletter to like the Wall Street Journal. We had the Wall Street Journal was actually one of my clients, and we brought the company public. But when I came over here, Hagai had another operation, and he was doing a lot of work on LinkedIn to do lead generation for his company. So at that time, we were doing a lot of connecting with groups and sending messages to people on groups. And so I started saying, oh, I can generate leads. This is pretty incredible. There's so many people we can connect with and communicate with. There's no cold calling involved. There's nothing like that. It's direct to the decision maker. And I started playing around with creating software. I hired a developer to help me do messaging on LinkedIn, create like an automated software. I was probably one of the first guys that was doing that on LinkedIn at the time. And then, of course, it caught on very big. A lot of people abused that. But then again, I learned how to do lead generation. I actually took that business and I made it my own. And we started doing lead gen. And that's sort of where I am today. It's evolved quite a bit since then. But today I'm still doing lead generation, and that's 7 years later.
So thank you for that introduction, because that's really begun to get us into the thrust of this. Is really, you are the LinkedIn lead generation guru. Has a bad word, I mean that affectionately, but you really are an expert. You've put the work in and you've gone through it all, and you know how to leverage that platform to get B2B enterprises to give them the leads that they need. Why is LinkedIn in particular such a good platform if you are a B2B company looking for your next buyer? What is it about LinkedIn?
Well, LinkedIn it's the largest database of business people in the world, I would think. And it's a direct means of communication with these people. I mean, really, you can send anybody a message on LinkedIn. You can connect with anybody. All you need to do is send them a connection request, and you can actually put a message in the connection request to anybody. And there's really, you can message thousands of people for free in any industry or niche that you want. And that's why it's so good.
That's brilliant. And when did you, I know you started to talk about the story, but it'd be good to hear more. When did you have that epiphany? When did you, there are lots of people right now in B2B, and perhaps you encounter them all the time with your agency, who just don't even realize this opportunity is there. You'd think 10 years down the line, people would in B2B would realize LinkedIn was such a great database to work with. When did you realize exactly the opportunity that there is to generate leads from LinkedIn?
Oh, really? When I was working with Hagai, and his company now is called Fraud Logics. So we were using it to generate appointments for him. So the sales team that he had, we would go onto LinkedIn and we would message people in specific groups and say, "Hey, would you like to speak with the owner of Fraud Logics about our service?" And we got tons of appointments this way. I mean, tons of appointments, hundreds of leads. It was incredible. And coming from an old school, from over 20 years ago, I was uh, a salesperson, of course, and we had to actually call people on the phone and cold call and talk to the receptionists and the gatekeepers. And LinkedIn really eliminated gatekeepers. There's no gatekeepers anymore. You can speak, you can develop a line of communication almost with anybody that you want.
Do you think, Dave, that any B2B company can benefit from it? What are some examples of some of your best clients? What sort of B2B companies or service providers would benefit from using LinkedIn for lead generation?
Well, I mean, any B2B company should be on LinkedIn. There's no reason if you're not using LinkedIn. I mean, it's almost like shunning the telephone. It is the place to be for B2B marketers because your clients are definitely on LinkedIn. I mean, a couple of years ago, I could have maybe understood the argument that, oh, my clients aren't on there. But in every industry, I mean, literally every industry, there are thousands, at least thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of potential prospects for every B2B client. So you need to be on it.
Could you talk a little bit more about your agency, about LinkedInconnect.com and what you do there? What's the service that you offer and why has it been so successful, do you think?
Well, we do fully managed lead generation campaigns. So if a client doesn't really want to deal with the day-to-day mundane, repetitive aspects of doing lead generation, because it is repetitive. I mean, at the very minimum, you have to send out invites every day. You have to send messages to people to generate leads if you're using your own profile. If you don't want to deal with that, if you want someone else to do it for you, that's what we do. But in particular, we're not really for maybe the very small company that just needs a handful of leads. We're for more like the medium-sized company that has, salespeople that they want to supply with leads on a regular basis. We can generate many leads because we use a team of people to do this for you. So it leverages other people's time, and it leverages the time of my team that does the repetitive tasks. They get you the leads in a very easy way. All you need to do is follow up with them. We introduce you to the leads right on LinkedIn. We add you to the conversation. So it's a very nice warm handover to someone who has specifically said that they're interested in your service.
Some people listening to this, Dave, might say that, well, Dave, I could use automation tools. There's Linked Helper out there, or Meet Leonard. There are always new ones. What's the story there, or what's your comeback to something like that?
Well, no, those are great tools. There's a lot of tools out there that will help you do lead generation on LinkedIn. The challenge is generating any type of volume. If you want to get the word out there to thousands or tens of thousands of people, that's very hard to do directly from your own profile because LinkedIn limits the amount of activity that you can do. You can't send out 1,000 invites in one day from your profile, or you shouldn't. If you do, there's a very good chance that you're going to get your profile restricted. The same with messaging. There on LinkedIn, there is software out there that will help you send messages automatically. But if you'll notice, if anybody's out there that uses this software, the software runs very slowly. It works just like a normal person would work. No faster. In the past, software could send out 1,000 messages instantly, but LinkedIn really doesn't allow the use of automation on their site. That's actually against their terms and conditions. So if you're using any software, it really has to mimic a real user. And a real user works slowly. So the benefit of using a team as opposed to just doing it yourself and using software is that the team is like 10 people doing that work for you. The team does use software sometimes, but even if they don't, it doesn't matter. There's 10 people versus one person. And that's the many hands make light work, they say, and this is what.
That is very true. And what have been some of your sort of best case studies? Are there, in your own experience, which industries have been best served by you and your agency, LinkedInconnect.com?
Well, with lead generation, I believe it has to be very targeted, and it can't be like it could be, but the challenge. I'll tell you what the challenges are for certain industries. Let's say you are a commercial real estate agent, and you're looking for companies that might want to use your services and move to another location. The challenge for generating leads for those types of companies is that you don't know when those people need it. They don't need it all the time. It's not a service they need all the time. It's a service they need once every 5 years, maybe. So if you're doing lead generation for that type of company, direct messaging is maybe not the best approach. I would suggest something else like having a team do status updates every day. So the team each connects with different people in specific target segments of your market, and then they place status updates that just get your name out there. And so you sort of use this propaganda to plant the seed about your service in these people's mind, and then they can use you whenever they want. But the companies that work best is that when you have a service that's very targeted, you know your niche market, and those people could use your service at any time. There's no particular season for it, let's say, or there's no particular, they could use it right now if you catch them, if you catch their attention, and you present your service in a way that's interesting to them. So that's what works best.
Could you talk listeners through what exactly a lead gen campaign looks like if someone was to work with you? What does that process look like? When a client comes to you and signs on, what do they get? What does that path to engaging with you, to getting leads in via LinkedIn look like in your context and your agency work?
Sure. Well, with what I do, I first like to plan out who we're going to be messaging. So the first thing that I have all my clients do is I have them fill out a quick questionnaire that asks them who their best prospects are. Like, what are the people's titles? What are their titles? What industries are they in? What company size? What keywords, common keywords might they use to describe themselves? And so based on those answers, I create a custom analysis of their market on LinkedIn. And it's a Google spreadsheet, but it outlines the different segments of the market. So let's say somebody is looking to reach people in Sweden. So with LinkedIn, what's nice is that it's worldwide. So they want to reach people in Sweden that are in the automotive industry, the medical devices industry, and financial services industry. Well, we map out the people on LinkedIn based on their titles, on their industries, their location, and it's a very distinct roadmap, let's call it, of who the team is going to be connecting with. And then once the client approves the roadmap, the market analysis, and they say, yes, that looks like our prospects, right? Then what we do, the next step is to write a sales message for them that's LinkedIn specific. So on LinkedIn, I found that long messages aren't very effective. Short and sweet, maybe 1 or 2 paragraphs the most, that just encapsulates what you're selling in a way that's appropriate coming from one of my agents. So the agent is representing the client, and they're just asking the client or the prospects if they're interested in what the client is selling. And so we write a very LinkedIn specific message from the viewpoint of sending it from one of our agents, and then the message is what generates the leads. So when the lead comes in and somebody says they're interested, my agents then ask them to confirm their interest. So they say, that's great, thanks for your interest, I'll send you some details, but would it also be okay if I added my colleague to the conversation. My colleague happens to be the president of the company, and he can answer any questions that you might have about the finer details of the service. And then if someone says yes, so they confirm they have an interest and they agree to an introduction, then we introduce the client, and that's a lead.
Brilliant.
I hope that wasn't too long.
No, it makes perfect sense, and it sounds like a very efficient system. A lot of people who work in lead generation will have their favorite platforms with which to work on. They might be YouTubers, they might be on Facebook, they might use blogs and SEO, different tactics and strategies. One of the issues I notice with social media platforms is sometimes they change their rules, or sometimes they'll change things which make it very difficult to stay on that platform for longer or use the same strategy. What do you see happening with LinkedIn in 2019? Is it still a safe platform from which to do B2B lead generation?
Yes, I think it's very safe. They haven't made any major changes recently to their policies. They've improved the communication platform, so they included the ability to add people to the conversation, which is great. They're also now including remarketing, so you can remarket to people on LinkedIn. I suppose you add their pixel. I haven't tried that yet, but I think that's a really, really great way to go. The changes that they seem to be concentrating on is eliminating, the use of software on their site. They've been doing that for a while. They change, software has to, when it's working, any kind of automation, it looks for commonalities on the different pages. And if LinkedIn changes its format, that messes up all the software. The programmers have to redo it. And so, LinkedIn does that quite often. They change their format. And that now they also are very sensitive. They have some kinds of sensors out there that look for automation. So I think they're going to come down on that harder because that automation just makes it easier for people to send out spam, and so they want to eliminate spam. And so they're I have a friend that worked at LinkedIn for a while, and he said that really what they concentrate most on is just the complaints that they get. So if you're sending out a message and it gets complaints, then what's going to happen first, most likely, is that your message is going to be ghosted. So LinkedIn won't tell you anything. The message just won't get any replies anymore because they have identified the content of your message and they have red flagged it. It's relatively easy to get around that. You just have to change your content and send it out again. But if they keep seeing this pattern from you, then they could restrict your profile. So they just are very wary about spam complaints, and that's what they seem to be watching the closest.
Well, that's good to hear that that there's a good future for LinkedIn, and more importantly for lead generators who are working with that platform for this year, as long as everyone behaves themselves and treats the platform with respect and don't spam people. So I guess, Dave, we're coming towards the end of our time together. So where can people learn more about you? What's your website? What's your agency called? What are some of the products you sell and do? Where can people find you and learn more from your expertise when it comes to doing lead generation on LinkedIn?
Sure. Well, you can go to linkedin.connect.com. That's LinkedIn Connect, CONNECT.com. And you can also go to linkedinstantagency.com. And Linked Instant Agency is a relatively new service that we're promoting right now that essentially it helps. It's like your own agency in a box. It is a clone of my agency. So all of the lead generation management tools and back-end structure is yours. We give that to you. We clone it for you. And that way, when you can hire your own people and you can plug them right into the system and they get trained almost automatically. Plus, we manage your team for you for 60 days. So essentially, you cut out the middleman. You don't have to pay an agency. You pay one fee, and then we manage for 60 days and train your people, up to 20 people for 60 days, and then we hand them over to you. And all through that time, they're generating leads, and then you just pay your team directly, and you pay them you could pay them as little as $5 per lead. It's up to you how much you pay them per lead. So it's really, I think, the next wave of lead generation on LinkedIn, because it utilizes our formula for generating leads, our management and our structure, and it allows you to skip the middleman and really generate leads at the very lowest cost possible.
Well, brilliant. So there you go, guys. People listening right now, if you want your own LinkedIn lead generation agency in a box, Dave Naranjo of LinkedIn and LinkedInconnect.com is the place where you need to be. Dave, thank you for giving up your time today, for being with us.
It's been great, John. It's always nice speaking with you.
And for anyone listening, if you want to be on the show or if you have any contributions, you can reach out and email me at johnny@leadgeneration.chat. That's Johnny, Jonny, at leadgeneration.chat. And I look forward to seeing you all on the next episode of Lead Generation Nation.